The rain came down in sheets across Haven Point, turning the streets into mirrors that reflected the gray November sky. David Hayes sat in his truck outside the white two-story house on Maple Street, engine idling, wipers beating a steady rhythm against the windshield. His hands rested on the steering wheel, calloused from years of working the foundry. Wednesday, 4:30, same as every week for the past 3 years. He killed the engine and stepped out into the cold. The rain soaked through his work jacket before he reached the porch. He knocked twice, then stepped back, water dripping from his hair down the collar of his shirt. The door opened. Jessica stood there in yoga pants and an oversized sweater, her blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked past him rather than at him. "He's getting his shoes on," she said. "How's he doing?" David asked. "Fine. School going okay?" "Yes, David. Everything's fine." She started to close the door, but David put his hand against it. "Not hard. Just enough. Can I talk to you for a minute?" Jessica sighed. "John's upstairs. I don't think. I'm not here to cause problems. I just want to know if Liam's been acting different lately." "Different how?" "Quieter. Less excited about things." Jessica crossed her arms. "He's 8. Kids go through phases." "Jessica." "Dad." Liam appeared behind his mother, backpack slung over one shoulder. His brown hair stuck up in the back. He wore his favorite dinosaur shirt, the blue one with the T-Rex on the front, but his eyes looked tired. "Older than 8. David's chest tightened. He forced a smile. "Hey, buddy. Ready to go?" Liam nodded and slipped past Jessica without saying goodbye to her. David noticed that. He noticed everything these days. They drove through town in silence. David kept glancing at his son in the passenger seat. Liam stared out the window at the rain, hands folded in his lap. "Want to stop for pizza?" David asked. "Okay. Just okay. Usually you get excited about pizza night." Liam shrugged. David pulled into the parking lot of Angelo's, a small Italian place on the waterfront. Inside, they sat in their usual booth by the window. The smell of garlic and tomato sauce filled the air. Other families talked and laughed around them. David ordered a large pepperoni pizza and 2 sodas. "So," David said, leaning forward on his elbows. "Tell me about school. How's Mrs. Patterson?" "She's fine. Still doing that science project on volcanoes." "We finished that. What are you working on now?" Liam picked at a paper napkin, tearing little pieces off. "Nothing really." The waitress brought their drinks. David waited until she left. "Liam, look at me." The boy raised his eyes. David saw something in them he'd never seen before, something that made his hands curl into fists under the table. "What's wrong?" David kept his voice gentle. "Nothing. You know you can tell me anything, right? That's what I'm here for." Liam's lower lip trembled. He bit down on it hard. "I'm fine, Dad. You don't seem fine. Real men don't cry." The words came out flat, practiced. David felt like he'd been punched. "What?" "Real men don't cry. They don't complain. They handle their problems." "Who told you that?" Liam looked away. "Nobody." "Liam, can we just eat when the pizza comes?" "I'm hungry." David sat back. His jaw clenched, so hard his teeth ached. That line didn't come from him. He'd never said anything like that to his son. He'd coached high school wrestling for 6 years before the divorce, and he'd told those boys the same thing he told Liam. Strength isn't about not feeling things. It's about feeling them and still standing up. The pizza arrived. Liam ate 2 slices without speaking. David barely touched his food. When they got back to David's apartment, a small 1-bedroom above the hardware store on Main Street, Liam went straight to the couch and turned on the TV. David stood in the kitchen, staring at nothing. His son was 8 years old and already learning to shut down his emotions, already learning that expressing pain was weakness. He knew where that lesson was coming from. That night, after Liam fell asleep on the pull-out couch in the living room, David sat at his small kitchen table with a beer he didn't drink. He picked up his phone 3 times to call Jessica. Put it down 3 times. What would he say? "Your husband is teaching our son toxic masculinity?" She'd hang up on him. Tell him he was overreacting. Tell him he was jealous. Maybe he was jealous. Not of John Mallory. David wouldn't trade places with that man for anything, but of the time, the daily routines, the bedtime stories and morning breakfasts. The thousand small moments that make up a childhood. He'd lost those in the divorce. Lost them because he'd worked too many hours at the foundry, trying to save money for a house they never bought. Lost them because Jessica said he was too distant, too quiet, too caught up in his own head. She'd wanted passion, fire, arguments that ended in make-up sex. David gave her steady reliability and calm problem-solving. Turned out that wasn't enough. Then she met John at her book club. Former Marine. Owned his own auto shop. Knew how to talk, how to charm, how to make Jessica feel desired. 6 months after meeting him, she asked for a divorce. 6 months after that, she married him. David finished his beer and went to bed. He didn't sleep well. The next Wednesday came too slowly and too fast at the same time. David got off his shift at 3, showered at the foundry, and drove straight to Jessica's house. The rain had stopped, but the sky stayed gray. Everything in Haven Point was gray in November. He knocked on the door. John answered. John Mallory stood 6'2", broad shoulders, military posture. His dark hair was cut short, and he had the kind of jawline that showed up in razor commercials. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. David, right on time. Is Liam ready? Almost. Come on in for a second. David stepped inside. The house smelled different now. Cologne and leather. Jessica's vanilla candles were gone. Beer? John asked, walking toward the kitchen. No thanks. I just want to get Liam. John opened the fridge anyway, pulled out a bottle, twisted off the cap. He leaned against the counter. You know, I've been meaning to talk to you. David waited. Liam's a good kid, John said. Smart, but he's soft. Way too sensitive for his own good. He's 8. That's exactly when you start building character. My old man had me chopping wood and fixing cars by the time I was 7. Made me who I am today. David kept his face neutral. What's your point? My point is, you can't coddle him forever. World's going to eat him alive if he keeps crying every time something doesn't go his way. He doesn't cry every time something doesn't go his way. You're not here every day. I am. Trust me, the kid needs tougher skin. David's hand stayed at his sides, but every muscle in his body tensed. He's my son. I'll decide what he needs. John took a long drink of his beer. He's living in my house now. Under my roof, my rules. Is there a problem? Jessica appeared at the top of the stairs. She looked between them, already reading the tension. No problem, John said, still smiling. Just father-to-father talk. David looked at Jessica. I'd like to speak with you. Alone. She came down the stairs. John, can you get Liam? John shrugged and headed upstairs. David heard his heavy footsteps on the hardwood floor above them. What is it? Jessica asked. What's John doing with Liam? What do you mean? What's he doing? He's being a father figure. Liam told me real men don't cry. Where do you think he learned that? Jessica's mouth tightened. You're overreacting. Am I? Because last week he was a normal kid who talked about dinosaurs. Now he won't even look at me. John's just trying to toughen him up a little. You were always too soft on him, David. That's part of why. She stopped. Part of why what? Part of why you left. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. John's voice boomed from upstairs. Liam, your dad's waiting. Move it. Jessica wouldn't meet David's eyes. It's for his own good. Boys need discipline. Structure. John knows what he's doing. He was in the Marines. I was a wrestling coach. I know something about teaching boys to be strong. And how many of your wrestlers went on to do anything important? John trained men who fought in actual combat. The words hit harder than any punch. David stepped back. Right. I'm just a steelworker who couldn't keep his wife happy. Well, I know about raising my own son. That's not what I meant. Yes, it is. Liam came down the stairs, backpack on, eyes down. John followed, one hand on the boy's shoulder. The gesture looked casual, but David saw how Liam flinched slightly under the touch. Have fun with your dad, champ, John said. Remember what we talked about? Liam nodded. In the truck, David tried again. What did John mean? Remember what we talked about? Nothing. Liam, I don't want to talk about it. The outburst shocked them both. Liam's eyes went wide, like he'd said something wrong. David wanted to tell him it was okay to be angry, okay to yell, okay to feel. But the words stuck in his throat. They spent the evening at David's apartment. Liam did his homework at the kitchen table while David made spaghetti. They ate quietly. Liam went to bed early, curled up under the blankets on the pull-out couch. David cleaned the dishes and thought about what Jessica said. Too soft. Not enough discipline. Not enough structure. For 3 years, he'd swallowed those criticisms, wondering if she was right. If he'd failed as a husband, maybe he was failing as a father too. But watching his son shut down, watching him learn to hide his feelings like they were something shameful, that wasn't right. That wasn't strength. That was just survival. The following Wednesday, Liam got in the truck without a word. David drove toward his apartment, but kept glancing over. Something was different. Liam moved stiffly, like every bump in the road hurt. "You okay, buddy?" "Yeah." "You look uncomfortable." "I'm fine." When they got inside, Liam headed straight for the bathroom. David heard the lock click. 5 minutes passed, then 10. "Liam? You all right in there?" "Yeah, I'm fine." When the boy finally came out, his eyes were red. He'd been crying. He moved past David quickly, heading for the couch. "Wait," David said. Liam froze. "Come here for a second." "Why?" "I want to check something." "Your back's hurting, isn't it?" "No." "Liam, let me see." The boy's whole body went rigid. "No." David knelt down, putting himself at eye level. "I'm your dad. If you're hurt, I need to know." Tears welled up in Liam's eyes. He shook his head. "Please," David said softly. Liam's chin trembled. Slowly, he pulled off his dinosaur shirt. He turned around. David's vision went red. Bruises covered the boy's shoulder blades. Dark purple marks, fresh, in the clear shape of finger pressure. More bruises ran down his back, some yellowing at the edges from earlier injuries. "Who did this?" David's voice came out steady despite the rage building in his chest. Liam didn't answer. He pulled his shirt back on, fast, and ran to the couch. He buried his face in the cushions. David stood there, fists clenched, breath coming hard. He wanted to drive back to that house right now. Wanted to walk through the door and break John Mallory's jaw. Wanted to make him feel every bit of pain he'd inflicted on an 8-year-old boy. But he'd been down that road before. He'd let rage guide him once, years ago, in a bar parking lot when some drunk grabbed Jessica. David had put the man in the hospital, walked away with assault charges that haunted him through the divorce proceedings. Jessica used it to paint him as unstable, dangerous. It cost him shared custody, cost him time with his son. He wouldn't make that mistake again. David took out his phone and photographed the bruises. Liam didn't protest, just lay there, crying silently into the couch cushions. "I'm going to fix this," David said. "I promise you, I'm going to fix this." That night, after Liam cried himself to sleep, David sat at his kitchen table with a plan forming in his mind. He needed evidence, something that would stick, something undeniable. He went online and ordered a voice recorder, small enough to hide. Good battery life. It arrived 2 days later. The next Wednesday, before picking up Liam, David stopped at a toy store. He bought a cheap keychain with a plastic dinosaur attached. In his truck, he carefully pried open the dinosaur's back and nestled the voice recorder inside. The fit was tight, but it worked. He resealed it with super glue. At Jessica's house, he waited on the porch. When Liam came out, David knelt down. "I got you something." He held out the keychain. "Thought you could put it on your backpack. It's a T-Rex. Your favorite." Liam took it, examining it. A small smile crossed his face. The first real smile David had seen in weeks. "Thanks, Dad." "You're welcome, buddy." That night, David couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, imagining what sounds a recorder might capture. Imagining his worst fears confirmed. He wanted to be wrong. Wanted to believe John was just strict, just old school, just rough around the edges. But those bruises told a different story. Friday afternoon, when he picked Liam up for the weekend, the boy moved even more carefully. David said nothing, just got him in the truck and drove home. After Liam went to bed, David retrieved the backpack. His hands shook as he removed the keychain and connected the recorder to his laptop. The file was several hours long. He skipped through listening to snippets, classroom sounds, recess, the bus ride home. Then, after what must have been dinner, John's voice came through, loud and clear. "I told you to clean your plate." Liam's small voice. "I'm full." "I don't care if you're full. You eat what I give you." "But my stomach hurts." "Your stomach hurts because you're weak. Now, finish it." Sounds of crying. Small, hitching sobs. What did I tell you about crying? John's voice turned cold. That real men don't. Stop crying. It sounded like a hand hitting flesh. Liam cried out. Stop crying, you little girl. You think tears make you a man? Another smack. Liam sobbed harder. Get to your room. Now. David's laptop screen blurred. It took him a moment to realize he was crying. His hands gripped the edge of the table hard enough to hurt. He played the recording again, then a third time. Each time, the rage built. But underneath the rage, something colder settled in. Something calculating. John Mallory had just made a fatal mistake. He'd hurt David's son where David could prove it. And David was done being the bigger man. Done taking the high road. Done swallowing his anger for the sake of peace. He was going to destroy John Mallory. Carefully, methodically, completely. But first, he needed help. Monday morning, David called in sick to work. First time in 2 years. He drove to Haven Point Elementary and parked in the visitor lot. The school counselor's office was on the second floor, a small room with posters about feelings and friendship covering the walls. Mara Jensen looked up from her desk when he knocked. She was in her early 30s, with dark hair cut short and sharp eyes that missed nothing. David had met her once before at a parent-teacher conference last year. Mr. Hayes, is everything all right? No. He stepped inside and closed the door. I need to talk to you about Liam. She gestured to the chair across from her desk. David sat, elbows on his knees, hands clasped tight. What's going on? She asked. My ex-wife's husband is hurting him. Hitting him. I have bruises documented and audio recordings of the abuse. Mara's expression shifted from concern to focused attention. She pulled a notepad closer. Tell me everything. David told her. About Liam's changed behavior. The bruises. The voice recording. He showed her the photos on his phone. As he talked, her jaw set harder. When he finished, she leaned back in her chair. You need to report this to Child Protective Services immediately. I know. But I need more than just my word and some recordings. John's a veteran, decorated Marine. People respect him. They'll think I'm just a bitter ex-husband trying to cause problems. The bruises could be from roughhousing, could be from sports. That's what a good lawyer would say. I need something that can't be explained away. Mara studied him. You're thinking several steps ahead. I've thought about nothing else for days. She picked up a pen, tapping it against her desk. I grew up with a stepfather like John, charming in public, monster at home. My mom didn't believe me for years. By the time she did, I was already 16 and counting down the days until I could leave. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Use me. I know how men like John operate. They're careful. They know how to hide it. You need to make him slip up somewhere he can't hide. That's what I'm trying to do. How can I help? David hadn't expected that. He'd come here looking for advice. Maybe a referral to CPS. But Mara was offering more. An alliance. I need someone who can document what's happening at school, he said slowly. Someone who can notice if Liam comes in with new bruises or if his behavior changes. Someone who can put it in official reports that carry weight. I can do that. What else? I need to know what makes a case strong enough that CPS has to act. That they can't just investigate and close the file. Pattern of behavior, Mara said immediately. Not just one incident. Multiple incidents over time. Witnesses. Physical evidence. And, if possible, something that shows intent rather than just poor judgment. David pulled out his phone and opened his notes app. Go on. They talked for an hour. Mara explained the ins and outs of the system. How CPS investigations worked, what kind of evidence judges actually cared about, how custody cases could drag on for months if not handled right. She gave him the names of lawyers who specialized in child protection cases. She told him to keep detailed logs of everything, dates, times, injuries, conversations. Document everything, she said, even things that seem minor. When did John raise his voice? What exactly did he say? How did Liam react? The more detailed your records, the harder they are to refute. When David finally stood to leave, Mara walked him to the door. Mr. Hayes, call me David. David, be careful. Men like John don't take kindly to being challenged. If he finds out what you're doing, let me worry about that. She nodded. I'll keep close tabs on Liam. If I see anything at all, I'll document it immediately and contact you. Thank you. Get your son out of that house. Whatever it takes. David spent the next week preparing. He bought another camera, this one meant for outdoor use. Small, weatherproof, with a motion sensor and night vision. He drove past Jessica's house 3 times, studying the layout. The porch had good coverage of the front door and driveway. If he could mount the camera somewhere discreet. On Saturday, when he had Liam for the weekend, David drove to a hardware store 2 towns over. He bought mounting brackets, weatherproof casing, and a long-life battery pack. Back at his apartment, he assembled everything on his kitchen table while Liam watched cartoons. The camera fit perfectly inside a fake birdhouse. From the outside, it looked like decorative yard art. Inside, the lens had a clear view through a small hole in the wood. "What are you making?" Liam asked, appearing in the kitchen doorway. "Just a project." David closed the birdhouse. "How you feeling today, buddy?" "Okay." "Your back still hurt?" Liam's eyes dropped. "A little." "Come here." Liam walked over slowly. David lifted the boy's shirt. The bruises had faded to yellow-green, but new ones marked his ribs. David's jaw clenched, but he kept his voice steady. "Did John do this?" Liam pulled away, yanking his shirt down. "I fell." "Liam, I fell. I'm clumsy, that's all. John says I need to watch where I'm going." David wanted to press, but the fear in his son's eyes stopped him. John had trained the boy well, taught him to lie, taught him to protect his abuser. "Okay," David said quietly. "If you fell, you fell. But if anyone ever hurts you on purpose, you tell me. Understand? No matter what they say, no matter what they threaten, you tell me." Liam nodded, but didn't meet his eyes. Sunday evening, when David dropped Liam back at Jessica's house, he waited until John's truck pulled out of the driveway. Jessica had mentioned he had a bowling league on Sunday nights. As soon as the taillights disappeared around the corner, David grabbed the birdhouse from his truck. Jessica answered the door with a confused expression. "David, I thought you already. I forgot to give Liam his homework folder. He left it in my truck." "Oh, well, come in, I guess." While Jessica went upstairs to get Liam, David stepped onto the porch. The hanging planter hook was perfect. He reached up, quickly attaching the birdhouse to the hook. It looked natural, just another piece of porch decoration. "Dad," Liam appeared with his folder. "Right here, buddy." David took the folder from Jessica and handed it to Liam. "Don't forget to finish that math worksheet." "I won't." David ruffled his son's hair and left. In his truck, he pulled up the camera app on his phone. Perfect view of the front door, driveway, and porch steps. He set it to record whenever motion was detected. That night, he placed another recorder inside one of Liam's toy cars, a large red truck that Liam kept on his dresser at Jessica's house. David had grabbed it during a previous visit, claiming he wanted to repair a broken wheel. Now, it had a working recorder tucked inside the battery compartment. The trap was set. 3 days later, the camera caught something. David was at work when his phone buzzed with a motion alert. He checked during his lunch break, sitting in his truck in the Foundry parking lot. The video showed John pulling into the driveway at 2 in the afternoon. Odd. The auto shop didn't close until 6. John got out of his truck, stumbled slightly. Even through the grainy camera footage, David could see the unsteady walk. Drunk, or close to it. John went inside. The camera captured nothing for 40 minutes. Then the front door burst open. John came out, dragging Liam by the arm. The boy's feet barely touched the ground. "I told you to clean your room." John's voice carried clearly. "I did clean it." "Don't lie to me." John shook Liam hard. "When I tell you to do something, you do it right." David's grip on his phone tightened. John released Liam roughly. The boy stumbled, catching himself against the porch railing. John jabbed a finger at his chest. "Get back in there and do it again. And if I have to come back out here, you're going to regret it." Liam ran inside. John stood on the porch for a moment, breathing hard, then followed. David saved the video and sent it to his personal cloud storage. Then he called Mara. "I got something," he said when she answered. Video of John manhandling Liam. "It's clear. No way to explain it away. Send it to me. I'll add it to my file." "Your file. I've been documenting everything you've told me. If this goes to court, you'll need someone besides yourself who can testify to the pattern. A school counselor's testimony carries weight." David closed his eyes. "Thank you. Don't thank me yet. We're not done." That evening, David picked up the audio from the toy car's recorder. Most of it was just background noise, TV sounds, Jessica moving around the house. But around 8 p.m., John's voice came through again. "Did you finish your homework?" Liam's voice, nervous. "Most of it." "Most of it? What does that mean?" "I got stuck on some problems." "So you gave up?" "Like you always do." "I didn't give up. I just couldn't figure it out." "Don't raise your voice at me, boy." "I'm sorry, The sound of something hitting wood. Hard." Then Liam crying. "Stop sniveling. Go to bed. And tomorrow, you finish that homework. I don't care if it takes you all night." David played it 3 times. Each time, his anger grew colder, more focused. He was building a case now, piece by piece. Each recording, each video, each documented bruise was another nail in John Mallory's coffin. Friday afternoon, when David came to pick up Liam, John was in the driveway working on a car. He straightened up when David's truck pulled in, wiping his hands on a rag. "David, hold up a second." David got out slowly. "What is it?" John walked over, that same easy smile on his face. But his eyes were cold. "You know, I've been thinking. Liam's been acting weird lately. Nervous. Jumpy. Like he's hiding something. Kids that age get moody. Yeah, maybe. Or maybe someone's been putting ideas in his head." John stepped closer. "You wouldn't be trying to turn him against me, would you?" "I don't need to turn him against you. You're doing that yourself." John's smile vanished. He grabbed David's shirt, twisting the fabric. "Listen to me very carefully. You lost her. You lost this house. You lost your place in this family. Don't make me take your kid too." David looked down at John's fist, then back at his face. He spoke quietly, each word deliberate. "You already did." John's grip tightened. For a moment, David thought he might throw a punch. He almost hoped for it. A fight right here, right now, in front of Jessica's house, with the camera recording everything. But John released him, stepping back. "Get your boy and get out of here." David straightened his shirt. Gladly. Inside, Jessica was helping Liam pack his overnight bag. She saw David's expression and tensed. "What happened?" "Ask your husband." "David, we're leaving." In the truck, Liam was silent for the first few miles. Finally, he spoke. "Are you mad at John?" "Yes. He says you're jealous of him." David's hands tightened on the wheel. "What else does he say about me?" "That you're a quitter. That you gave up on Mom. That you weren't strong enough to keep your family together." Each word was a blade. David kept his eyes on the road. "Do you believe that?" "I don't know. Your mom and I divorced because we wanted different things. That doesn't mean I gave up on you. You understand that, right? No matter what happens between adults, I will never give up on you." Liam didn't answer. That night, David lay awake thinking about John's threat. "Don't make me take your kid too." The arrogance of it. The certainty that he could control everything, everyone. John thought he was untouchable. David was going to prove him wrong. Monday morning, David drove to the Haven Point Police Department. Detective Nora Vance worked out of a cluttered office on the 2nd floor. She was in her mid-40s, with gray-streaked hair and tired eyes that had seen too much. David knocked on her open door. She looked up from her computer. "Help you. I need to report child abuse." She gestured to the chair across from her desk. David sat and told her everything. He showed her the photos, played the recordings, shared the videos. Nora listened without interrupting, taking notes in a small notebook. When he finished, she set down her pen. "Mr. Hayes, I'm going to be straight with you. This is concerning, but it's also complicated." "How is child abuse complicated?" "Your ex-wife is married to the man you're accusing. You're the biological father who lost custody in the divorce. Defense attorneys will paint this as a vendetta, a bitter ex trying to make trouble. I have evidence. You have audio recordings that may or may not be admissible in court, depending on Oregon's recording consent laws. You have videos that show rough behavior, but not clear-cut abuse. And you have bruises that could be explained a dozen different ways." David leaned forward. "So what are you saying? That you won't investigate?" "I'm saying I need more. I need something undeniable. Something that can't be explained away or dismissed as parental discipline gone slightly wrong." "What would that look like?" Nora studied him. "Ideally, a public incident. Multiple witnesses. Something that shows John's true nature in a setting where he can't claim it was private family discipline." "You want me to provoke him?" "I didn't say that. But that's what you mean." She didn't confirm or deny, just looked at him steadily. David stood. "I'll get you what you need." "Mr. Hayes, David, Be smart about this. Men like John, if they feel cornered, they escalate. You push him too hard, your son could get caught in the crossfire. My son's already caught. I'm just trying to get him out. Back in his truck, David sat for a long time. Nora was right. He needed John to show his true self publicly. Needed him to lose control where everyone could see. The question was how. That night, David called Mara. I need to know everything about John Mallory. His history, his weaknesses, everything that's not in official records. Why? Because I'm going to make him crack. There was a pause. Then, I'll see what I can find. 2 days later, Mara called him back. John Mallory was dishonorably discharged from the Marines 7 years ago. He assaulted a superior officer during a training exercise. Put the man in the hospital. David's pulse quickened. That's public record? It's in his military file. Not sealed, but not easy to access either. I have a friend who's a veteran. He helped me dig. What triggered the assault? According to the report, the officer criticized John's performance in front of the other soldiers. John lost his temper and attacked him. 3 witnesses confirmed John through the first punch. David smiled grimly. So he has a history of violent outbursts when his ego is challenged. Yes. And here's the thing. His auto shop has had 3 complaints filed against it in the past 2 years. All from customers who said John became aggressive when they questioned his work. No charges filed, but the complaints are on record. Can you give me copies? Already done. I'll email them tonight. David spent the next week researching. He found old court records, talked to people in town who knew John, built a picture of a man with a short fuse and a desperate need to be seen as dominant. John's whole identity was wrapped up in being the alpha, the tough guy, the one in control. That was his weakness. David just needed the right moment to exploit it. The opportunity came 2 Saturdays later. Liam had a little league game. Jessica had texted David the details. Haven Point Elementary Field, 2 p.m. John would be there. Jessica too. David arrived early and sat in the bleachers on the third base side. Parents filled the seats, kids running around eating hot dogs and cotton candy. A normal Saturday afternoon. John showed up 15 minutes before game time, walking with that confident stride. He found Jessica in the stands and sat next to her. He didn't acknowledge David's presence. The game started. Liam played right field. In the 3rd inning, a fly ball came his way. He ran for it, glove extended, and missed. The ball hit the ground. The other team's runner made it to 3rd base. John stood up. Come on, Liam. That was an easy catch. Other parents glanced over. John sat down, but his jaw was clenched. 2 innings later, Liam came up to bat. First pitch, he swung and missed. Second pitch, same thing. On the 3rd pitch, he connected but weakly. The ball dribbled to the pitcher, who threw him out at first. John exploded. Are you kidding me? That was pathetic. Jessica put a hand on his arm. John, it's just a game. Just a game? He's not even trying. Liam walked back to the dugout, head down. David could see tears on his face even from across the field. John started to stand, like he was going to go down there. Jessica pulled him back. They argued in low voices. David watched, waiting. The game continued. Liam struck out again in the 7th inning. This time, John didn't just yell. He stood up and marched down to the chain-link fence by the dugout. Liam, get over here. The boy looked terrified. He walked slowly to the fence. What the hell is wrong with you? John's voice carried across the field. You're embarrassing me out there. You look like a little girl who's never held a bat before. I'm trying, Liam said, voice breaking. Trying? You're barely moving. Stop crying and start acting like you have some backbone. David was already walking. He crossed the field calmly, parents watching. He came up beside John at the fence. Back off, David said quietly. John turned. Excuse me. You heard me. Back off. You want to criticize someone? Criticize me. But you leave my son alone. Your son. John laughed. I'm the one raising him. You just get him for weekends when you're not too busy feeling sorry for yourself. David stepped closer, close enough that John had to look up slightly to meet his eyes. You talk to my son like that again, and I'll make sure everyone here knows exactly what kind of man you really are. John's face darkened. You threatening me? Stating facts. You think you're tough? You think you can intimidate me? John's voice rose. Parents were definitely watching now. You're a nobody, David. A factory worker who couldn't keep his wife. Couldn't provide for his family. Can't even. At least I don't beat children. The words hung in the air. John's face went red. His fists clenched. What did you say? You heard me. John lunged. His hands went for David's throat, grabbing, squeezing. David didn't fight back. Just stood there, letting it happen. Letting everyone see. Parents screamed. Someone yelled for help. Jessica ran over, pulling at John's arms. It took 3 men to drag him off. David rubbed his throat, coughing. A crowd had gathered. Phones were out, recording. John was still trying to lunge forward, held back by the other fathers. You son of a, I'll kill you. John. Jessica grabbed his face. Stop it. Stop it right now. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called them. David sat down on the grass, still coughing, watching John unravel. The man was shouting, struggling, completely out of control. His mask had slipped. Everyone could see the rage underneath. Liam stood by the dugout, watching his stepfather being restrained. Tears streamed down his face. 2 police cars pulled into the parking lot. Officers got out, walking quickly toward the field. David recognized one of them, Officer Pete Morrison, who'd been a year ahead of him in high school. What happened here? Morrison asked. 10 parents started talking at once. Morrison held up his hands. One at a time. A mother stepped forward. That man attacked him. She pointed at David. Just grab his throat out of nowhere. He provoked me. John shouted. He threatened me. I said you shouldn't talk to my son that way, David said calmly. Then he attacked me. Morrison looked at David's neck. Red marks were already forming. That true? He grabbed you? Yes. You fight back. No. Morrison turned to John. That true. John's mouth worked, but no words came out. He knew he was trapped. Knew that 24 witnesses and multiple phone videos had captured everything. I want to press charges, David said. Morrison nodded. He walked over to John. Sir, I'm going to need you to come with us to the station. This is ridiculous. He started it. Multiple witnesses say otherwise. You can explain your side at the station. Morrison put a hand on John's arm. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Jessica was crying now. John, just go with them. We'll sort this out. John finally stopped struggling. He shot David one last look of pure hatred as Morrison led him to the patrol car. David stayed where he was, sitting on the grass, watching John being put in the back of the car. Parents approached, asking if he was okay. He nodded, said he was fine, thanked them for their help. Liam ran over and threw his arms around David's neck. Dad! David held his son tight. It's okay. It's going to be okay now. But even as he said it, he knew this was just the beginning. John wouldn't go down without a fight. This wasn't over. It was just starting. At the police station, they put David in an interview room and brought him water. His throat hurt where John's fingers had pressed into the flesh, but nothing was seriously damaged. The same couldn't be said for John's future. Detective Nora Vance came in after 20 minutes. She sat across from him, a folder in her hands. Well, she said, you got your public incident. I didn't plan it, didn't you? She opened the folder. Funny thing, I've been doing some digging since you first came to me. Called in a few favors, pulled some records. John Mallory has quite the history. She spread papers across the table. Military discharge documents. Complaint forms from the auto shop. Old police reports from bar fights. He's got a pattern, Nora continued. Violence when challenged, particularly when his authority or competence is questioned. You knew that when you confronted him today. David said nothing. The thing is, Nora leaned back. I don't particularly care if you manipulated him into showing his true colors. Because you were right. He is an abuser. And now I have the evidence I need to act. She pulled out another document. This is a recording that was anonymously sent to my office yesterday. Want to guess what it contains? David's heart rate picked up. I have no idea. It's John Mallory beating your son. Crystal clear audio. And here's the interesting part. It also contains John bragging to someone on the phone about an unregistered firearm he keeps in his garage. A Glock 19 that was reported stolen in California 3 years ago. David kept his face neutral. He'd sent that recording to the police anonymously from a burner email account. He'd suspected John had illegal weapons. Most guys with his background did, but hearing John actually talk about it had been a gift. "You're going to search his house," David said. "Already have a warrant being drawn up. The judge signed off on it an hour ago based on the audio evidence of child abuse and illegal weapons possession." Nora smiled slightly. "John Mallory walked into a trap today. Whether you said it or not doesn't really matter now. What happens next? He's being held on assault charges. Once we execute the warrant and find that gun, and I'm confident we will, he'll have much bigger problems. Combine that with all the evidence of child abuse, and he's looking at serious prison time. And Liam, CPS is already involved. I called them myself. They'll do an emergency assessment. Given the circumstances, I'd say there's a good chance your ex-wife loses custody. At minimum, she'll lose the right to have Liam in a home where John is present." David closed his eyes. It was really happening. After weeks of planning, documenting, waiting, it was finally happening. "You should know," Nora said carefully, "Jessica is cooperating. She's in another room right now, giving a statement. She's claiming she didn't know the extent of what John was doing." "Did she know?" "I think she knew something. Maybe not everything, but enough that she should have acted. Mothers who fail to protect their children from abuse don't get to claim ignorance." David stood. "Can I take my son home?" "Not yet. CPS needs to interview him first. But soon. Go get some rest. You're going to need it for the battles ahead." David went home, but he didn't rest. He paced his small apartment, waiting for the phone to ring. At 8 p.m., Mara called. "I heard what happened," she said. "The whole town's talking about it." "Good. David, are you okay?" "Really okay. I will be when my son is safe." "He will be. You did the right thing." "Did I? Or did I just use him as bait?" There was a pause. "You protected him the only way you could. Don't second-guess yourself now." After they hung up, David sat at his kitchen table. The same table where he'd planned this whole operation. Where he'd listened to recordings of his son being hurt. Where he'd mapped out John Mallory's weaknesses and figured out how to exploit them. He didn't feel triumphant. He felt tired. His phone rang again. "Jessica." "David." Her voice was hoarse from crying. "They arrested John. They're searching our house. They took Liam to some CPS facility for evaluation. This is all your fault." "No. It's John's fault for hurting our son. It's your fault for letting him." "I didn't know." "You knew enough. You saw the changes in Liam. You heard John's anger. You chose to ignore it because it was easier than admitting you married a monster." "I loved you," Jessica said suddenly. "I really did. But you were so closed off. So distant. John made me feel alive again. And look what that cost our son." She sobbed. "What happens now? Now you decide what kind of mother you want to be. One who protects her child, or one who protects her husband. He's going to prison, isn't he?" "Yes." "Good," she whispered. "I hope he rots there." David hung up. At midnight, Detective Vance called. "We found the gun. Exactly where the recording said it would be. We also found another firearm, unregistered, and enough evidence of child abuse to charge him with multiple felonies. He's not getting bail. When can I see Liam?" "Tomorrow. CPS wants to place him with you temporarily while they complete their investigation. Long-term custody will be determined by family court, but given everything, I'd say you're in a strong position." "Thank you." "Don't thank me. You did the work. I just processed the paperwork." She paused. "For what it's worth, you did good. A lot of fathers would have just gone over there and beaten John bloody. You played it smart." After she hung up, David walked to his window and looked out at Haven Point's dark streets. Somewhere out there, John Mallory sat in his cell, finally facing consequences. Jessica sat in that house, realizing her marriage was over. And Liam was safe. For the first time in months, David slept through the night. 3 weeks later, David stood in family court. The hearing was brief. Jessica didn't contest his petition for full custody. With John in jail awaiting trial, and her own judgment called into question by CPS, she had no leverage. The judge granted David full legal and physical custody of Liam. Jessica got supervised visitation, pending completion of parenting classes and therapy. Outside the courthouse, Jessica approached him. She looked smaller somehow. "Older. Can I see him?" she asked. "That's up to the court-appointed supervisor." "David, please. I know I messed up. I know I should have protected him better. But he's still my son. He was always your son. You just forgot that for a while. I'm sorry. David looked at her. He felt nothing. No anger. No satisfaction. No lingering love or resentment. Just emptiness where those feelings used to live. I don't forgive you, he said. I don't forgive John. What happened to Liam? That's something he'll carry for the rest of his life. You both did that to him. And sorry doesn't fix it. What do I do now? Figure out how to be better. If you can't do it for me, do it for him. He walked away. 6 weeks after the arrest, David sat on his apartment's small balcony with Liam. They'd moved to a bigger place, a 2-bedroom near the ocean. Liam had his own room now, decorated with dinosaur posters and a bookshelf full of his favorite stories. The boy was in therapy twice a week with a counselor who specialized in childhood trauma. Progress was slow but real. Liam smiled more, talked more, cried sometimes, which David told him was okay. Now they sat together, watching the sunset paint the water orange and gold. Liam leaned against David's shoulder. Dad, yeah, buddy. Are real men allowed to cry? David had been waiting for this question. He'd thought about his answer for weeks. Real men protect the people they love, he said carefully. And sometimes that means not crying until it's over. Because when you're in the fight, you need to be strong. You need to be smart. You need to keep your head clear. But what about after? After, you can feel everything you need to feel. Crying doesn't make you weak, Liam. Refusing to feel anything at all, that's what makes you weak. Liam was quiet for a moment. Do you cry? Sometimes. When I'm alone. When it's safe. Did you cry when John was hurting me? David's throat tightened. Every night. Liam turned and wrapped his arms around David's waist. They sat like that, watching the ocean darken as the sun disappeared. Eventually, Liam pulled back. What's going to happen to John? He's going to trial in a few months. He'll probably go to prison for a long time. Good. And your mom? She's taking classes, learning how to be a better parent. When the court says it's okay, you'll get to see her again. If you want to. I don't know if I do. That's okay. You don't have to decide right now. They sat in silence. David thought about the past few months. The planning, the manipulation, the calculated moves that led to John's downfall. He'd done things that weren't entirely legal. Recorded conversations without consent. Set traps. Provoked a violent man into attacking him in public. He didn't regret any of it. Dad, Liam said again. Yeah. Are we going to be okay? David looked at his son. 8 years old. Too young to have learned the lessons he'd learned. Too young to carry the scars he carried. But he was strong. David could see it in him now, underneath the fear and trauma. His son was a survivor. We're free now, David said. That's enough. They turned away from the ocean. Inside the apartment, David made dinner while Liam did homework at the kitchen table. Normal, everyday routines. The kind of simple moments David had lost and fought to reclaim. He didn't forgive Jessica for choosing John over Liam's safety. Didn't forgive John for his cruelty. Forgiveness wasn't something he had in him. Not for them. But he had something better. He had his son back. He had custody. He had the knowledge that justice, however imperfect, had been served. As they ate dinner, Liam talked about school. About a project on space he was working on. About his friend Marcus who wanted to come over for a sleepover. Normal kid concerns. Normal kid excitement. David listened, responded, asked questions. He was present in a way he hadn't been during his marriage. Back then, he'd been too focused on work, on providing, on the future. Now he understood that these dinner-time conversations, these homework sessions, these quiet evenings together, this was what mattered. After dinner, Liam asked if they could watch a movie. David said yes. They sat on the couch together, Liam curled against his side. Halfway through, the boy fell asleep. David turned off the TV. He picked up his son, still light enough to carry, and brought him to his bedroom. He tucked him in, pulled the blankets up to his chin. Love you, Dad, Liam murmured half asleep. Love you too, buddy. David stood in the doorway for a moment, watching his son sleep. Safe. Protected. Home. He turned off the light and walked back to the living room. He sat at his kitchen table, the same table where he'd planned John's destruction, and opened his laptop. There were emails to answer, bills to pay, normal life things. But first, he opened a file where he kept all the evidence. The recordings, the videos, the photographs, the detailed logs. He'd given copies to the police, to CPS, to his lawyer. But he kept the originals, just in case. Because men like John didn't learn. Even in prison, they convinced themselves they were victims. They told themselves stories about how they'd been set up, how they'd been wronged, how they'd get revenge someday. David would be ready if that day came. But for now, he was content. He had his son. He had his freedom. He had the quiet satisfaction of knowing he'd won. Not through violence, not through rage, but through patience, planning, and the careful application of pressure to a man's weakest points. John Mallory had underestimated David Hayes, had seen a quiet steelworker and assumed that meant weak, had seen a divorced father and assumed that meant defeated. That had been John's fatal mistake. David closed his laptop and looked around his small apartment. It wasn't much. 2 bedrooms, basic furniture, nothing fancy. But it was theirs. Safe. Free from violence and fear. He thought about Jessica's question at the courthouse. What do I do now? David had his own answer to that question. He would raise his son. Teach him that strength didn't mean never feeling, never crying, never showing vulnerability. Strength meant protecting what mattered. Standing up when it counted. Fighting smart instead of fighting angry. Liam would grow up knowing his father had fought for him, had refused to give up or back down, had done whatever was necessary to keep him safe. And if that made David ruthless, calculating, unforgiving, so be it. He wasn't a perfect man, wasn't a hero. He was just a father who loved his son more than he feared the consequences of his actions. That was enough. David turned off the lights and went to bed. Tomorrow, he'd take Liam to school, pick him up after work, help with homework, make dinner, all the ordinary routines that made up a life. And somewhere across town, John Mallory would wake up in a cell. And Jessica would wake up in an empty house. And they would both have to live with what they'd done. But David and Liam, they were free. And freedom, David had learned, was worth any price.